All right, so this week's topic is going to be cybersecurity in the age of remote work, protecting the virtual office. You guys can stop me at any point during this presentation to ask questions about anything IT related, but specifically cybersecurity this week, obviously. And I want to start with this. In 2023, it is estimated that we will face around 33 billion account breaches. If you think about that, there's a little less than 8 billion people on the planet. So that means everybody will have at least 4 account breaches this year. And you may not even know that it happens. That's the really scary part. Cyber attacks, um, there have been 8 million recorded in total on average every year, with a total of one hacker attack every 39 seconds. So during this presentation, probably 20 attacks will occur around the world. So the focus here today is mostly on remote work, but we're going to talk about cybersecurity in general for small businesses. So we'll talk about how remote employees can protect themselves as well as the company they work for, and what businesses should do to protect their stuff, their data, primarily their data, but their network, their proprietary information, and so forth when you have remote employees. And as we know, today's world, there's a lot of remote work being done for various reasons. It's really got kicked into high gear with the pandemic. But now that most businesses have returned to somewhat normal, we see businesses will work from home if there's extreme weather, if there's some type of illness in the office, and you just want to keep everybody from getting sick or things like that. So, or some have a hybrid model where they work a couple days in the office and a couple days at home. Maybe you work part-time in the office and then work part-time at home. So these are all different reasons why you may work remotely, and it's not going to go away. So I know some businesses want their employees to return to the office, and I know other businesses that have kind of embraced the work from home model for various reasons. So I want to thank everybody for coming. And I want to talk about some of there should be some statistics coming up. So first of all, for me, I have been in the IT world for probably close to 20 years now, in total, various forms, but mostly helping small businesses with their IT needs, cybersecurity needs, which has changed dramatically since I started working in IT. Ransomware attacks used to target homeowners on their personal computers and ask for $200. Now they target businesses and ask for, in some cases, millions of dollars. But a lot of cases for smaller businesses, $50,000, $100,000, something that the smaller business might be able to pay. And so the ransomware attackers will ask for something that they believe they can get from that business. Those things didn't happen when I first got into IT. I'm a member of the 405D task force, which is a federal task force to improve cybersecurity in the healthcare world, from hospitals all the way down to the small practices that are out there. And every practice is covered that accepts and transmits insurance data over the internet is covered under the HIPAA rules, and that's what 405D is tasked with. And then I'm also the chair of Cybersecurity and Tech Committee for New Haven Bar Association and the Mid-State Chamber. We'll talk about security best practices, defense in depth, and we'll talk about recognizing potential attacks and mitigating the risk. But these are usually the 4 ways in. So unpatched software, operating system, productivity software. So all of these things could be a way in. You probably notice Google Chrome has updates seems like almost weekly, sometimes more than once a week. And you'll open Google Chrome and it'll say update on the top right, and you click update and then it relaunches Google Chrome, and then you got to log into things again. And it's super annoying, but those updates are almost always to fix a vulnerability that is already being exploited in the wild. So people are already out there trying to find people that are using the unpatched version of Google Chrome, which may allow them access to the computer or access to data or access to logins or things like that. And I'm only using Google Chrome as an example because it is something that people see all the time. But your Windows operating machine, your Windows operating system, your Mac operating system, all of these things could have vulnerabilities, but also the software on your computer. If you have Microsoft Office, there's vulnerabilities at least once a month that get patched. I have seen all types of software on computers that need to be updated. And in some cases, the software is no longer supported, and so it has to get removed completely. But knowing that you have software on, knowing what software is on your computer, and then making sure it is the most recent version is a core part of cybersecurity, and it is one of the most common ways for a hacker to get in. They find an unpatched software with a vulnerability, a known vulnerability, and they will exploit it. Weak or guessable passwords, and I share this story a lot. I have a client, he's an attorney, and when I first started working with him, he needed help setting up his email. And when we were getting to the password point of the email, he told me his password was the word password with an uppercase P and an exclamation at the end. And so, of course, I made him change that immediately. This is a very weak and guessable password. That password specifically is on the top 25 list of most hacked passwords. But any kind of password that is common dictionary words or family members or birthdays or your business name, things like that. I see that a lot too, the business name in the passwords. Those are very weak and guessable. And so what happens is there is software out there to brute force passwords. It's very difficult to do these days because of multi-factor authentication, and we'll probably get to that later. But it's also you don't need brute force because a lot of times you can guess. So if I tried to log into my bank account and I guessed that the password for my account is my name or one of my children's names, that might not be too hard to figure out through social engineering, a little guessing. You might be able to figure it out. Exposed vulnerabilities, again, that goes back to unpatched software, but a lot of times those exposed vulnerabilities occur through hardware too. There was a big one recently for BombGuard. I think it's BombGardner. They create email security hardware. They create software too, but they create a hardware. And that hardware, there was a vulnerability to the point where they couldn't fix it and told everybody that's using this particular piece of hardware just to throw it out and get a new one. And as of a couple of weeks ago, a number of businesses still have not taken care of this, not thrown out that hardware. And that becomes a problem too. If you have outdated hardware that is no longer being supported. So if you have, let's say, Windows 7 computers in your business or at home, it's no longer being supported by Microsoft. Windows 10 will stop being supported in 2025. And if they no longer push out updates for Windows 10, it then becomes vulnerable. Remote desktop protocols, another one. This is a Microsoft protocol that, when used, allows you to remote into another computer somewhere. What happens a lot of times is they use a combination of that protocol and then a weaker guessable password, and it's exposed to the internet and can actually be there's software out there where I can look for exposed remote desktop protocols, and it's free, and then try to attack them. This is an exposed vulnerability. And then phishing, you will hear me talk about phishing. And the number of phishing attacks, successful phishing attacks, seems to have gone down. However, the number of actual phishing attacks continues to increase, and they get more sophisticated. Artificial intelligence is going to play a part in this, and that's going to increase the likelihood that they are successful. And that's why we talk about multi-factor authentication all the time. And that's why we do these types of things, education, where we teach you how to look for those. But also just staying aware of yourself, staying aware of what common attack vectors there are. You know, I get asked about Geek Squad emails all the time. They are very obviously phishing attacks, but then there are other ones out there that you may not may not be so obvious. I've got one today that was I was asked about an IRS refund email, and we are approaching tax season again. And so this is something that people fall for. So they think they got a refund coming, or, it's playing on your emotions. It's playing on the fear that you might miss out on that refund, or excitement that maybe you have some money you weren't expecting. And so what do? You click on a link, you put in a little bit of information, and now your credentials have been stolen. So these are the four most common ways in. Not the only ways in. The days for you, if you've watched some of these movies where there's a hacker, they run all these commands on their computer with the black screen with the green font on it, and that does happen. It is not anywhere near as common as this stuff. So some of the other stuff that you may run across: data leakage. This could happen in various ways. One of them being you might have a disgruntled employee stealing data. I did find an employee at a business this week, yesterday actually. I was going through patching computers that failed patching, and noticed that one of the employees had a Dropbox account installed on their computer, and they were putting data from the business into Dropbox, their personal Dropbox account. Now, it may not have been malicious. We haven't had that conversation yet. They may just be trying to work from home, but this presents a risk depending on the type of data that's being placed in Dropbox and the user's intent. That could be a risk. Data leakage through software can occur. If you have unpatched software, sometimes data gets out, or through email. These things can happen as well. And then finally, unauthorized access. Hackers often get into a network and do not do anything immediately. They will wait for after hours. They will see what they can find on the network, see what else they can access. And in some cases, they are there for months or years. There's a big vulnerability that caused a number of breaches already this year, including some here in Connecticut. Eversource was a victim, and Waterbury Hospital was a victim, and there was another company here in Connecticut that was a victim. And it's the MOVEit. It's MOVEit. It's a file transfer protocol that was vulnerable. The hackers, the attackers that found this vulnerability have known about it for over 2 years. So they've been in these systems in some cases for multiple years. Some of the larger compromises, the hackers are there for years before they do anything. They're stealing data. They're trying to find out what else they can to get into. And then they finally launch a ransomware attack after they've stolen all your data, and after they found multiple ways to now try to blackmail you into paying them. So unauthorized access is another big problem, and it's a growing problem. Artificial intelligence is playing a role in all of this. So the faster that artificial intelligence grows, and it is growing very rapidly, the more likely that it will play a part in an attack once they figure out how to use it. So I know ChatGPT has grown in popularity very rapidly, and I know if you try to do something malicious in ChatGPT, it warns you that it cannot do that. Supposedly there are ways around that. I have not tested any of those, so I don't know. But scarier than that is that there have been ChatGPT clones created already for the sole purpose of launching malicious attacks. So this problem is not going away, and it's the only way. I've been saying this for years. The only way this is going to go away is by taking the financial gain out of it. And the only way we're going to take the financial gain out of it is by teaching people what to look for and how to avoid it. So let's talk about some phishing emails here. This is, I don't know if you can, how well you can see it, but this is just a kind of a feeler. I call it a feeler. And what they're doing, they want to make sure that the email account that they sent this to is actually working. So there's nothing here. There's nothing for me to download. There's nothing for me to click on. And, it's very generic message. Good to hear from you the other day. I have no idea who Emma is. No, I don't know anybody named Emma. We are all good here. It's from a Gmail account. This went to my not my personal, my commercial, my business account. I knew right away what it was. If you get random emails from this, from people you don't know, or email addresses you don't know, they are just trying to see if the email address actually works. That's all they're trying to do here. And so don't reply to them, because that's just giving them a little more fuel for the fire. But you can expect more phishing emails once this occurs. So I do get phishing emails. And if anybody says they don't get phishing emails, they're either lying or it's a brand new email account. But I can promise you almost everybody gets phishing emails. Now, a lot of them do get filtered out. If you're using Microsoft or Google Workspace, a lot of those emails get filtered out by those companies. They claim to be about 80 to 90% of them get filtered out. I still get at least a handful every day. And I have a Google Workspace account and a Microsoft 365 account. And I still get at least a handful every day. So you have to know what to look for, because you're not going to catch them all. And this is on top of other software I'm using. So you can see I have Iron Scales running. It said it didn't recognize the sender, but nonetheless, people are going to reply saying, I'm sorry, who's this? And now this person knows that this is an active email account. They're looking to see if they get a bounce back message, number one, and number two, they're looking to see if you reply. So if they don't get a bounce back message, then they know it's a good email account. If they get a reply from you, then they know it's an active email account. So what can you do? What can you do to prevent being breached on your own? So there are some things that we do on our end, and I'm not going to dig too deep into all of that, but there are some things that you can do as well. So this is kind of a list of everything combined, but a big piece of that is education. So I can educate, and we do a lot. We do on-site education. We do in the office education. We do virtual education like this. We also have some automated videos that go out to our clients, but you can also do your own. There are some great websites out there that will help you stay afloat as to what is a common attack method at the moment, and they change all the time. So for example, when COVID was the hot topic, there were a lot of COVID phishing websites, and all that means is there were websites that were collecting people's information for malicious purposes. There were COVID emails. I mentioned the IRS earlier. Tax season is rapidly approaching, yay. And you will also start to see an uptick in IRS scams, IRS emails, people's taxes being scammed. Every year, a number of people have their taxes submitted by the wrong person. So somebody pretending to be me does my taxes and takes a refund. If they're probably not doing it right if they're getting a refund, but they get a refund. All kinds of things like that where they're stealing money. There's the Social Security scams that happen all the time. There's somebody calling and saying that a family member of yours is in jail. They need $2,000 to get out now. I've seen this, and I've seen people fall for this. There's a ton of scams out there, and I will try to list some sites. When I post this, I will list some sites that you can use to kind of stay aware of what's going on out there. It is something that we do. We stay up on all of these things so we know what to look for. And when our clients tend to send us emails and say, hey, is this legitimate? And we're able to answer that pretty quickly most of the time. And then if I'm not, we have ways to test it. This is a big one, strong password policy. This you can 100% do on your own. You don't need anybody else to do it for you. And a strong password just means, depending on who you ask, I tend to do 20 characters or more. There is 2 blog posts on our website, knowledgetech.com. The more recent one says 12 to 16 characters, but again, I tend to go 20 or more. And that password should be uppercase, lowercase, numbers, and special characters. And so you can generate passwords. There are password generators out there that I use. The one I primarily use is the LastPass password generator, but there's tons of them out there. As a matter of fact, I even wrote a little PowerShell script. I can just run it on my computer if I wanted to. Don't use the same password in 2 different places. So your Your email password should not be the same as your bank password, should not be the same as your Facebook password, should not be the same as your Instagram password, and so forth. You should not have the same password being used twice. And you should not be reusing your password that you've used in the past. So in other words, if I always use this example, LinkedIn was breached in 2015 or 2016. And in that breach, they stole passwords, usernames and passwords. So my username, my email account and password that was being used on LinkedIn at that time was stolen. I can no longer use that password. So you should also monitor the dark web. There are ways for you to do it on your own. It's not as proactive, but you can check. And then there are ways to do it proactively where you have a service that's always looking. There's as a matter of fact, a lot of credit card services do this now. So if you had that password on LinkedIn in 2015, don't reuse it ever again. So on my LinkedIn, it's now a completely different password and a completely different email. And this way, no chance you're getting into my LinkedIn or anything else because it's not being reused anywhere else. So now the question becomes, how do I remember those complex passwords? I have 20 random characters for every single thing that I log into, and most of us have dozens of things we log into. How do I remember those? And that's where a password manager comes in. I'm not going to recommend one or another. There are tons of them out there, some with very good reputations. So just Google password manager and you'll find a list of them. Make sure you have multi-factor or two-factor authentication turned on for everything. And so now the question, so if you don't know what two-factor authentication, we'll start with two-factor. So two-factor authentication just means that when I log in, I now have to also, so I enter my username, my password, and then a code that gets generated or gets sent to me via text. So the more secure method is an app on your phone that generates the code. I would rather use text message than none at all. But if you could pick between the two, then the app on your phone is better. Text messages can be intercepted and phones can be cloned. And if your phone is cloned, they're going to steal all of that information. And also I've seen where people are tricked into giving the text message two-factor authentication to someone on, in an email or on the phone. And because the text message two-factor authentication usually sometimes lasts 10, 15, 20 minutes or 30 minutes in some cases, whereas the two-factor authentication in the app is only good for 30 seconds. So even if you gave it to the person who was asking for it, if they don't log in a few seconds, they're not getting in. There is another type of two-factor authentication. It's a little thumb drive, USB drive that you plug into your computer, and you have to touch it as a form of authentication. That is not as widely supported yet, but it is out there. So my password manager does use that. My Microsoft account does use that. You can set it up with Google as well, Google Workspace. So that is a third form and is a lot more secure than any of the others. But anything is better than nothing. Multi-factor authentication adds another piece of authentication. So for example, some businesses choose to only allow you to log into email when you're in the actual office. So your IP address for the office gets added to something called conditional access. So now you have to know the password, you have to have your two-factor authentication, and you have to be in that office for that to be able to log into that. And that's multi-factor authentication. Or you might have, retina scan or thumbprint or something along those lines. Anti-phishing software service. There are services that you can get on your own. But it's just something on, and also if you have Microsoft 365 and to a lesser extent Google Workspace, they also do offer these services through their platform. You have to have a certain level of agreement, a certain level of email service with them for that to work, but it is available. And all that does is improve the likelihood that you'll be notified of a phishing email. Again, it's not 100%, but it improves your chances. So the anomaly-based malware protection, kind of hard to get on your own for businesses and work from home employees. Your business should supply it, and that will probably come from a managed service provider. DNS and web filtering, you might be able to do this through your router. And all that means is you block out certain types of sites. So you may block out, most businesses don't want their employees on gambling sites, adult sites, sometimes social media sites. And they will also block out, if it's a good web filtering service, will block out newly created sites or suspected phishing sites. Phishing simulation is something you could get on your own, but again, usually provided by a managed service provider or an IT firm. And all that does is we, once, 2, 3 times, whatever we agree on, we'll send you simulated phishing emails to see how well you recognize a phishing email. And it's educational purposes only. It's not punitive. And if you do fail it, the punitive part is you get to watch a video and maybe take a short quiz. This is probably even more important though. Think or verify before you click. So this is the other piece of the education, right? Make sure you, when you get an email and you're not sure what it is. So let's say it's something you didn't expect. So first of all, if it's not somebody you recognize, don't click or download anything. Don't click or download anything ever. If it's important, then they will probably reach out to you again. And if it is from somebody you know, but you're still not sure, you have your suspicions, you weren't expecting an email from them, or text message, texting, the amount of text phishing, it's called smishing, texts have increased dramatically to the point I'm getting probably 4 or 5 a week at this point. Sometimes I get multiple in a day. Sometimes I don't get any for weeks. And I have videos up to show you what those look like too, including a romance scam, pig butchering scam. We'll get to that another day. But check with the person. So if you get an email from someone in your office saying, hey, I need you to look at this real quick, and there's a link, and you click on the link and it asks you to log into your Microsoft account or, some other account, then good chance it's phishing. Stop right there. Don't go any further. Check with that person. Call them, text them, something. If the email looks suspicious, this is happening more and more. There's been a number of businesses in Connecticut and all around the country that their Microsoft accounts or their Google Workspace accounts have been compromised, and then they're used to send out phishing messages to other businesses, especially if they're already in the address book. I've seen this a number of times now. And that's why we go back to strong password and multi-factor or two-factor authentication. So they get an email, looks legitimate, something feels off about it. Call the company, text them if you know somebody there. Don't reply via email, and just check. Can't hurt to verify and say, did you send me this email? Was that intention? And I've done that, and I've been told we were actually breached, and that's why you're getting that email. Audit, just go through and take a look at things. If you see something needs to be taken care of, let's take care of it. If your password needs to be updated, let's update it. If you notice that a piece of software is out of date, needs an update, then let's update it. This link here, this bit.ly link, is safe. You can go to it. It leads you to 11 steps to mitigate the risk of a phishing attack. It's an ebook that I created a while ago. Might actually need to be updated a little bit, but you could go there and download that ebook for free. So let's just talk a little more about a few things. So first of all, Google found that at least 65% of people reuse passwords across multiple, if not all sites. So, or they may not reuse the exact same password. So let's say I reuse, I don't know, I have a dog. I had a dog when I was a kid named Teddy. So let's say I use Teddy 2023 on Facebook, and then I use Teddy 2023 exclamation on LinkedIn. And then I use Teddy 2023 with the @ symbol on my Microsoft account. So they're doing this. It's not hard to guess. So once the attacker knows this is your pattern, they're going to try it across everything. And they have scripts. They've created scripts that will test these passwords across every platform that's out there, even if you're not on that platform. So let's say you don't have a X or Twitter or whatever account you want to call it now. They're still going to test it. 4.1 billion records were exposed in the first half of 2019. A little dated, but that was 4.1 billion records. That is going to go up. So I could tell you in healthcare alone, last year, 2022, there was 53 million records exposed, I think it was. There's already more than that this year, and we still have a third of the year to go. This one will make you laugh. 123456 is still one of the most used passwords today, despite efforts to improve password security. This blows my mind. I mean, most sites don't even allow 6-character passwords anymore, but it's still one of the most popular passwords today, or 1234567 8. Things like that. We're still not paying attention. And passwords are going to go away eventually. So Microsoft is already working on this. Some other platforms are already working on this. Passwords will eventually go away. You'll have to log in with something that you have on you in order to get in. And you might already be seeing some of that in Microsoft. Again, these are some of the tips for passwords: uppercase, lowercase numbers, and special characters. The more characters, the less chance of it being cracked. So cracked means I've got a piece of software that can brute force that password. It will keep trying different passwords. Usually the attackers have a list of passwords in the tens of thousands, if not more, that they will try. Now they need a pretty powerful computer to do this. But most of the time they have access to it. You can go on Amazon or Microsoft Azure or Google or any other service that Linode, and you can pay by the hour for a computer with the kind of processing power you need to be able to crack passwords. They don't want you to do this. That doesn't mean people aren't doing this. But there is software out there that will crack passwords. Never reuse passwords. Use a password manager. And again, two-factor, multi-factor authentication or biometrics. Just to log into my computer, I have to have my username, my password, and then I have multi-factor authentication turned on. And if I don't have it gets generated on my phone. It's a prompt that says, is this you logging in? Yes or no. So I'll know if anybody else tries to log in as well. And then I have to click yes or no. And that's how I get into my computer. You should be securing your data, and the recommended method for backups is 3-2-1 method, it's called. And that means you're doing 3 backups. 2 should be local, 1 in the cloud, or vice versa, 1 local, 2 in the cloud, but either way works. Local is faster to restore from. However, it's also easier to be destroyed in the event of a catastrophic event, fire or hurricane or something like that. You still have the cloud backup if you do this, though. And the cloud backups today, as long as you're using a reputable service, are usually secured with separate credentials and they're encrypted. Oh, okay, I have it here. So encryption is important, so we'll get to that in a moment. You should also be backing up your email. You can do this manually, but there are services out here that do that as well. By the way, a cloud backup for individuals, if you have a Dropbox account, Dropbox will back up your entire computer. That's if you have a paid account. And if you have OneDrive, it will back up your desktop, your documents, and your pictures. But there are services out there that will back up your entire Microsoft 365 account or Google Workspace account, and there's probably a few other email accounts that it will back up. Confirm backups are completed and valid. I get an email every day with all of the client backups to make sure that they worked. And encryption. So your backups should be encrypted, but more importantly, especially if you have a mobile device, so your smartphone, your tablet, your laptop, you should encrypt that. And if you have Microsoft Windows Pro, 10 Pro or 11 Pro, BitLocker is built into it. So you just turn on BitLocker. It will give you a key in the event you ever need to decrypt it without knowing the password. So you save that key somewhere else, usually to a Microsoft account, but you can also print it out and save it in a file somewhere. And so what I do is I do both. I save it to Microsoft, and I also print it out and save it in a file. And then what happens is if somebody steals your laptop and they don't know your password, they cannot recover the data. If they know your password, then you're still in trouble. But if they don't know it, there's nothing they could do to get the data off your laptop or your phone and Apple iPhones and most Androids are encrypted by default. And or thumb drives is another one, USB drives. You should encrypt those. You can use BitLocker to do that as well. And then with Mac, FireVault. So if you have a Mac laptop, FireVault will encrypt, and it is on by default. And then data getting stored offsite in the cloud should also be encrypted. So depending on what service you're using, it may or may not be encrypted by default. If it's not, you should turn it on. Again, anti-malware, antivirus. Microsoft does have built-in anti-malware. Microsoft Windows Defender. That's fine for most cases. There are better, there are worse. We do use SentinelOne. That is channel only, so you have to go through an IT provider to get it. But it is a lot more robust than Windows Defender. And we also have a few other things that we use. So these things are all things that you would have to go through an IT provider for, except for Canary. Canary is, and we do set this up on our clients. So it's a document that we put on the machines that looks enticing to an attacker. So it might say passwords, it might say checking account, something like that, tax returns. And then when it gets opened, we get an alert. And in this way, we know somebody's doing something that they shouldn't be doing on that service. This you can do on your own. You don't need us for that. Again, securing your data, making sure your stuff is patched. Software updates whenever they become available. If you do know of a 0-day, and again, if you go, I will list some of the sites we use. If you do become aware of a 0-day, a 0-day means it's something that was unknown prior to the patch coming out. So even the software vendor may not have known about it, and there's a very high chance it's already being exploited. So again, if I go back to MOVEit, file transfer protocol hack that occurred, what became aware of earlier this year, the vendor, the manufacturer, was not aware that this problem existed, and it may have been known for 2 years. That's a 0-day. And patching should be completed as ASAP. I do recommend waiting to patch. So Microsoft patches and Apple patches, Apple Mac patches typically come out the second Tuesday of the month. And I usually wait till Friday unless there's some circumstance where immediate attention is required. So the reason I do that is a lot of times, especially with Microsoft patches, there's a problem, creates a problem. Just this year alone, it's taken out printers. It's caused people to blue screen, just a bunch of different things this year alone. So we don't push immediately. We wait until we've had a chance to test it and wait for feedback in the IT world to see if anybody becomes aware of an issue with the patch. So typically Friday night, early Saturday morning, we do this. Incident response, you should have an incident response plan that usually is created between the business and the IT provider, if you have one. But you should always have some kind of plan. What do you do if there is an incident? If you are compromised, if data was stolen? In the state of Connecticut, the laws are pretty strict. We have some of the strictest privacy laws in the country, and data breaches have to be reported to the Attorney General. There's some guidelines to that, but they do have to be reported for the most part. And then depending on what the industry of your business is, you may have to report it to other agencies as well. So healthcare, you have to report it to the OCR. If you're in anything with financial services, you have to report it to FTC and so forth. Again, the education piece, people are the weakest link in any cybersecurity plan, and they always will be. There's nothing we can do about that. It is what it is. And the reason is computers don't have emotion. People do. So you get an email that says, your Microsoft account has been compromised. Your immediate reaction is, oh crap, I'm in trouble. In reality, your account probably hasn't been compromised because Microsoft isn't going to send you an email to tell you that email account has been compromised. But that your initial gut reaction is, I'm in trouble. And so what do? You click on the link to reset your password. And that doesn't take you to a Microsoft account. It takes you to a site that looks like Microsoft. You put in the old password, you put in a new password, you think you've reset the password. In reality, you did not. And now the attackers have your password, the old password, but it still works because you didn't really change it. And then you might get a text message that says, we've noticed some suspicious activity on your account. Can you please verify the two-factor authentication code that we send you? And then they send a two-factor authentication code via text message, and you give them the two-factor authentication code. They now have full access to your account. And I use that scenario because that happened to someone just a few months ago. Someone called me up and explained to me what happened. They lost their entire account. The person was in the insurance world, likely clients in his email, and Microsoft was no help to him. And as a matter of fact, because he was trying to get Microsoft to help, they were able to trick him into believing that the text message he got saying, this is Microsoft, we're trying to help you with your situation, and I'm paraphrasing, he believed it was them because he was already trying to reach out to Microsoft. So they got his email account and most likely got all of his client's information, and they should now expect phishing emails. And this is how it works. This is what they do. And so they go out to small businesses that believe they are not targets. You are wrong, because they want your Microsoft accounts. They want your bank accounts. They want the data you might have. They want the client data you have. They want stuff from you. And then they want to be able to say, give us $50,000 if you want it back. Even if you pay, there is no guarantee they're going to give it back. And even if they give it back, that doesn't mean that you can keep a copy of it. This is what you're up against. They don't care. All they want is the money, and they could sell that data on the dark web. They can request a ransom from you. You should never pay the ransom. There are just a number of ways they can get paid for this breach. They can then use the stuff they stole and try to attack other businesses with it and have a higher success rate because now it looks legitimate. This is what happens. So this is why we started with this topic. It is probably one of the more pressing topics today. I know artificial intelligence is a big deal as well, and we will be talking about that in future Tech Tuesdays. But cybersecurity, especially with the work from home environment that we are now in, with many businesses at least allowing partially for employees to work from home, it is a challenge for businesses to maintain that security. It's harder, especially if it's BYOD. If you can avoid bring your own device, then avoid it. Give your employees a computer to bring home. This way you could secure it better. When it's their device, you cannot secure it as well because it's their device. But it is a challenge, and it is something that needs to be addressed. So if you have questions, now's the time to ask. Or you can also social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram. We are on Twitter, but I don't really use it anymore. LinkedIn and YouTube. All of those are Nuage Tech. Or you could just email support@nuage.tech. And let me just see if there's any questions here. Nope, doesn't look like there is. Well, if there are no questions, then I will give you 10 minutes of your day back. All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming. And hopefully I get to see some of you next week, next Tuesday at noon. Oh, something just popped up. Oh, you're welcome. Okay. Have a great day, everyone. Have a great week.